Hey, how's it going? It's Adam with Adam's Coast Chronicles. Today I am here at Six Flags New England. I just got outside the gate and looking forward to having a good day. Here we got the carousel. Basically, once you walk in, you go straight this way. Just go straight from the entrance. And the park basically is one straight line from left to right with a couple little branches off of it. So whichever way you go, you're going to hit a dead end. Six Flags New England this year is open for 2 weeks of spring break, which is typically what I think they do. One, I believe, is for Connecticut, and one is for Massachusetts, since it is pretty much on the border between those two states. Today's a Thursday, so I'm hoping there's not going to be a whole lot of people here. There wasn't a whole lot of people in the parking lot when I got here. So that's a good sign. Once you get to sort of the dead end of this path, you can take a left. If you go that way, you get to Goliath, Flashback, Wicked Cyclone, Pandemonium, and some other things over there. If you take a right, it takes you all the way down to Dark Knight, Mind Eraser, and some other things. You can also just kind of go straight back here to get to Thunderbolt, which is their old classic wooden coaster. And if you keep continuing straight, it takes you to Superman the Ride, which was originally themed to Superman and then was changed to Bizarro. And this year it is changed back to Superman. I'm gonna go ahead and head back there. So after you pass Thunderbolt, if you go in and take a right, you can come around this way, or you can go kind of straight like I did past Thunderbolt. And the Scream Tower that takes you to DC Superhero Adventures. And this year, what was Superman and then Bizarro is now back to the original Superman theme. This time it's just simply called Superman the Ride. And it got some new paint. And I have to say, I definitely like the red and blue paint better than the purple. It definitely needed the paint job. Paint was getting a little bit shabby looking. So it definitely looks really great. If you come around this way, you get a really good view of the ride. You could just go straight down these stairs here. But sometimes I like to go this way to get a good view of the ride. It's been ranked several years as the top steel coaster in the world. I believe it was somewhat consecutively. It was ranked that way as both Superman and when it was Bizarro. To my knowledge, and we'll get to check this out in a second. To my knowledge, there are new trains, or at least they've worked on the trains that they had and made some updates to them. I'm not entirely sure what we're going to see in terms of the restraints. And I believe they did take off the onboard audio. And there will be a VR experience added to this ride, which should be cool to check out. Here we can see train making its rounds on the course. So we can get a good shot of these new trains. Trains look nice. Looks like this one has white front on it. The paint definitely looks great. I really like the red paint a lot, especially since it's brand new. It still looks good. But we're gonna check and see how it rides with the new trains and everything. All right, so here we have a sign advertising the virtual reality experiences coming to this ride. Six Flags has 2 different virtual reality experiences. One is the New Revolution VR experience that came to several rides in the chain. The other is the Superman virtual reality experience, which is coming to a few rides as well, including this one. I'm a little bit upset because they've been sort of advertising like it was going to be ready for opening of the park, or at least by, you know, Memorial Day weekend when they typically open new things. But as we can see here, it's not going to be ready until June 11th. I did check the site before I came, so I did know that it's not going to be open today. But at least, you know, get some rides on it with the new trains and the new paint before I actually do it with the virtual reality. And I'm looking forward to having some short lines, because if you've seen my Over Georgia video where I reviewed the VR experience on Daredevil Dive, the operations definitely suffer with the VR, so it will take a very, very long time once they open it. It will take a very, very long time to wait in line for this ride. So I'm looking forward to getting a few rides on it today. Alright, I just got off Superman the Ride, which is an Intamin hypercoaster. Definitely one of the better Intamin hypercoasters, or one of the better hypercoasters. I don't know that it's necessarily the best Intamin hypercoaster. As I mentioned before, it has won Best Steel Coaster Award in the Golden Tickets. There's a sign over here. It looks like 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009. Which it did both as Superman and as Bizarro. Yeah, all in all, you know, it's a pretty great ride. Lots of good airtime throughout it. It's got some nice fast turns and stuff like that. Me personally, I know a lot of people have this ride ranked very, very highly. And, you know, really do truly think it's the best steel coaster in the world. Personally, I don't really share that opinion. It's definitely a really great ride, and it's definitely like pretty high up there in my rankings. I'd say it's probably still in my top 10, but it's kind of the lower half of my top 10. As far as the trains go, I don't know that they're actually new trains. I think they just rethemed the old trains, switched out some parts. The seats are definitely different just because they don't have the on-ride audio. But I didn't personally notice any difference whatsoever in the ride experience with the renovated trains. They kept the same restraint design, which I'm not a huge fan of because it kind of digs into your thighs. So I kind of wish they would have swapped out the restraints or something, because pretty much every time I go over an airtime hill, that restraint digs into my thighs, which is pretty uncomfortable. You could maybe compare it to Sky Rush, except personally I find Sky Rush to be a little bit more comfortable than this ride. From that standpoint, I'm definitely interested to check it out, see what it's like with the VR experience. I think that potentially it could be really cool, just because the VR experience that I did on Daredevil Dive is really cool. So I feel like it being on a longer ride, a longer, more exciting ride, it could be really cool. That being said, I am really concerned about what the operation times are going to be like. I've heard reports that basically everywhere where they've already released the VR, that the operation times have been suffering a whole lot, up to like 5-minute dispatches between trains on some rides, which basically means like this ride on a busy day gets lines, you know, beyond an hour. I'd say hour and a half, 2 hours long, and that's without the VR. So I feel like with the VR, you know, you're probably going to be waiting 3 hours for this ride on a busy day. Today, it's a walk-on, so I went ahead and rode it 3 times, which I think this is the first time I've ever really been able to walk on this ride that quickly. I literally got into the station and we get on the next train. The first couple times I rode it in the back. The third time I rode it in the front. The back is definitely the much better seat. You don't really get much of anything at all on the first drop in the front seat. In the back, it's pretty good. The airtime is really good in both the front and the back. I feel like the front, there's a couple more intense pops on the front side of the hills, whereas the back is definitely a lot more prolonged. So overall, I'd say the back seat's definitely better for me, at least. Alright, I'm basically back to the front of the park, this original kind of T intersection that you come to when you walk in the gate. So that's the entrance over there. And at this point, I'm going left. So if you come in the park and you go left, it takes you back this way. If you're here on a busy day, it's definitely good if you're here like early in the day to just go ahead and do Superman. Because it definitely gets a huge line pretty much for the whole day. Whereas most of the rides in this park, I mean, I've been to this park on a really busy day a couple times. Most of the rides in this park, the lines don't really get too bad. But that one definitely does. So if you're going to come here on a busy day, I recommend doing it first. Otherwise, you can pretty much walk in from the front, go all the way left or all the way right, and then work all the way down the midway and hit everything in the park that way, which is usually what I do, with the exception of whenever I go straight to Superman. So over here you have Goliath, which is a giant inverted boomerang, which I haven't seen it run today. I don't know if it's running or not. It has a tendency to break down. I've been here a couple times and it hasn't been operating. Over here you can see the Thunderbolt, which is the old wooden coaster that we were by earlier. And I am going to go back and do all these things. But for now I'm walking straight to the back. Something that humors me about this park is they have a giant inverted boomerang right here. And then literally right next to it they have just a regular boomerang. Both of which were relocated here. The boomerang, which they call Flashback here, is relocated from Kentucky Kingdom, and the giant boomerang is from Magic Mountain. So not only do they have two boomerangs, but they were also both relocated here. I feel like they should get rid of that one and put something else there. Looks like they have a path over there blocked off. I don't know why. So I'm walking through this movie town area with some kiddie rides, stuff like that. Okay, there goes Goliath. So it is running today. I'll have to go check that out later. But over here we have one of the kiddie areas. There's another kiddie area over by where Superman is, which we can, I'll point it out later when I'm back over there. Got the Take 6 Cafe. This looks like it has a wide variety of different things. I'd say overall this park, it's pretty nice. Like, it just looks nice. Like, the buildings are themed to an extent. The front kind of has like a New England-y feel to it. And then the buildings over by the Superman area actually look pretty nice. And these buildings actually look pretty good. So overall, in terms of just kind of the character of this park, it's actually a nice little park. In terms of the size of the park's really not that big, but they actually have a lot of stuff. I think they actually have like 11 roller coasters, which for the size of this park, is pretty good. It's nice because it's easy to get through the park. Everything's pretty close to everything else. And as I said before, you know, it can get really busy here, but it's usually not too bad when I come here. This is Pandemonium, which is a Gerstlauer spinning roller coaster. It's the clone of all the other ones that Six Flags has. I'm actually going to do it later. Here we have, I believe there's this called the Sky Screamer here, which is the giant Starflyer. This one actually is the tallest one. I want to say it's like 400 feet or something like that, making it, you know, the tallest one. And over here we can see the first drop and other parts of Wicked Cyclone, which is actually where I'm headed now. I'm here in the queue for Wicked Cyclone, which as you can see is pretty empty. But something that's cool about this ride is you enter right here under the ride, and the majority of the queue is within the layout of the ride, which I think is kind of cool, because if you do get stuck waiting here, you get a really good view of the ride as it cycles. You can just kind of watch trains go around. And they've got some theming back here with this truck. It's kind of themed to like a storm chaser kind of thing, which is cool. Alright, I just got off the Wicked Cyclone. Went ahead and rode it 3 times since it is a walk-on right now. It is a RMC hybrid coaster, which basically means that they took an old wooden coaster and completely reprofiled it, and put steel track on it. As you can see right here, they call it the Iron Horse track. This is the third RMC that I've been on, and the third Iron Horse. I've been on the 2 in Texas and this one, and I actually like this one the best. It's a much smaller ride than the ones in Texas in terms of the height and the speed and everything like that, but it is action-packed. I think there's like 14 airtime elements on this ride, and they're all like really intense ejector air, and the whole ride super smooth, a whole bunch of airtime, and it has 3 inversions. The first is it's kind of like this, let me see if I can get a good shot of it, stall, which basically is kind of like doing a 0G roll, but you come back around, you exit it the same way, same direction that you enter it, so you don't really go all the way around. And that's probably my favorite element. It's got a super steep first drop, which is really, really great in the back seat. And it's got 2 other 0G rolls. One sort of in the middle of the layout. The last one is actually taken really slowly, which is kind of cool. It's almost like a like the JoJo roll on Hydra, or like the slow twist at the end of Banshee. Except that you only have a lap bar, which is pretty cool. This ride opened last year. When it opened last year, they didn't let you pick your seat. This year, technically you can kind of pick your seat, but they still have like a pulsar at the beginning. So it really, like, you don't really get to choose your seat, because the people that go in before you ultimately get to choose. But I got lucky enough to get it 2 rides in the back, 1 ride in the front. I'd say overall the front seat's better, just because like you sort of enter the inversions quicker and the transitions are better. That being said, the back seat's still really great, and the drop is much, much better in the back seat. The first drop you don't get a whole lot in the front seat, but the back seat, it really yanks you over, which is great. I'd say that at some points the airtime is just a tad more intense in the front seat, but really front to back, you can't really get a bad seat on that ride. And you know, in my opinion, I kind of go back and forth between whether or not this is the best ride in the park or Superman's best ride in the park. I'd say they're pretty close together in terms of how good of rides they are. That being said, they're much different ride experiences. Superman is a lot more about big, long, drawn-out elements, and this is a lot more about hitting you with as many things as possibly can in a short period of time. While I was over here, I went ahead and did the Skyscraper, since I haven't done this one. It's definitely super tall. It's basically just a swing ride that goes super tall. But something I liked about it is they had Ride of the Valkyrie playing on it, which I thought was cool. They've got a couple of different music selections, but I got Ride of the Valkyrie, which was cool. So basically, if you come all the way back into the park and take a left, from all the way back here, you basically hit a dead end at Wicked Cyclone and Skyscraper. So at this point, I'm going to work my way all the way to the other side of the park. I think I'm going to go ahead and do pretty much everything today. There's a couple of these things I haven't actually done. Here we have Blizzard River, which is their river rapids ride, which actually, from the skyscraper I saw, it looks pretty cool because you actually like go through a couple of buildings and tunnels and stuff, which is pretty cool. I don't think I've ever seen a river ride that does that. I'm going to skip it because it's a little chilly and I'm not really a huge fan of water rides to begin with. So basically, if you are coming this way, as I mentioned before, it forks. One way goes through this movie town area, and the other way basically just kind of takes you past it straight to look at Cyclone. And here's how you get to Pandemonium. Alright, I just got off of Pandemonium, which is a Gerstlauer spinning coaster, which is a clone of all the other Six Flags spinning coasters. And it's pretty good. I mean, I like spinning coasters overall. Definitely the ride that you get will depend on sort of how the weight is distributed in your car, on how much you spin. I know I've been on one time where I spun a whole bunch, and this particular ride was a good variety of kind of going forward, backward, and spinning. But it's definitely a fun, family ride. If you're over here, it took about 15 minutes or so to, actually probably not even that, probably about 10 minutes for me to get through. So definitely good to do in the line short because it is fairly low capacity, as there's only 4 people per car. But Pandemonium is a pretty fun ride. I just got off a Flashback, which is a Vekoma Boomerang, just a regular one. From here you can see we get Cyclone's drop, which is pretty cool. And it sucks. It's a Boomerang. Not a huge fan of them. I only did it today because I've never done this one, and I wanted the credit. There was no one in line for it, so I went ahead and did that. But, it's headbangy. Gives you a headache. Wouldn't recommend it. And now I'm going to do the giant Boomerang, which is right next to it. See if it's any better. I have done it once before, but I did it right after I ate. So I'm going to do it now. Hopefully it'll be a little bit better experience. Alright, I just got off Goliath, which is a giant Vekoma giant inverted boomerang, which is basically just a giant version of that right over there. I mean, I'd say it's a little bit better than that one, just because it's taller. You have vertical spikes. It's definitely really intense, but I can't really say I enjoyed it too much. It's super rough, like unnecessarily rough. It basically just rattles you around, gives you a headache. But what I will say is it is pretty intense. But yeah, there was nobody in line for it. I thought I'd give it a second chance. And I don't really need to do it again. Occasionally I'll ride rides like this to remind me how bad they are. So yeah, it's a little bit of a novelty just seeing as how huge it is. So if it's your first time here, maybe give it a try. I know some people like this ride. I don't. But I wouldn't wait. I wouldn't wait super long time for it. So coming from Goliath, if you're coming from the front of the park, you take a left over by Goliath. It takes you down this path. If you came from the sort of back over there by Wicked Cyclone, you can take a right and get here. Basically, there's this little area over here. It looks like there's a theater, and they have actually like a frisbee ride here. It's one of the older style ones where you face inside. These buildings look kind of cool, and looks like the theater isn't open, which is fine. But yeah, and then there's this other little flat ride over here. And it's basically a dead end. So there's a couple little things back here, but nothing too exciting. Also, I noticed a sign. I was trying to use this restroom right here. Apparently, they have a water main break on the north side of the park, which kind of explains why none of the restaurants over here have been open. I tried to get something to eat earlier, and nothing over here was open in terms of the restaurants. So hopefully, I mean, something's open somewhere. I'm sure that's a problem that will be resolved shortly. But, again, something I do like about this park is I feel like this park's got a lot of good character. At the very least, the park looks nice. Something else to note is at this park, they don't have beer jail. You can actually carry your beer around with you, which is good to know. If you like to enjoy a nice cold beer while you walk around or while you're waiting in line, here you can do that. They don't make you stay on a patio or anything like that. So at this point, I'm heading back towards the front of the park, which, as I mentioned before, is kind of in the middle of the park. That's where you enter. You go in and take a left, and then you stay to the left. It takes you down this path through this area. If you stay to the right of the fork, basically just takes you another way, straight back to Wicked Cyclone, where you can branch off into Looney Tunes Movie Town, or just keep going. But it's basically just a straight shot back with a couple little branches, and everything's pretty close, so everything's pretty easy to get to. It's a really easy park to get around and kind of figure out where things are. All right, I got some fried Oreos here from the Main Street Sweet Shop. This is actually the first time I've ever had these, so I'm gonna give this a try. Oh. Huh. It's pretty good. It kind of tastes like an Oreo wrapped in funnel cake batter. Pretty good. I just got out the Thunderbolt, which is a classic wooden coaster. It's actually an Ace roller coaster landmark, and it's a little it's basically like a figure 8 shaped out and back. It's pretty fun. And actually, surprisingly, not really super rough at all. It's actually pretty smooth for a ride that was built in 1940. I guess they've just taken care of it. It's definitely on the smaller side as far as wooden coasters go. So it's definitely a great ride, for families and younger kids. And it actually had a couple good pops of airtime on it. It actually had a little double down on it too, which I had forgotten was there. But yeah, it's a fun little wooden coaster. So at this point, if you were to go in and go straight, you get to Thunderbolt. It's pretty much right there. So if you were to take a right when you enter the park, there's the other way to get to Superman, which basically just takes you around the Scream Tower, this way and around the Thunderbolt. Or you can keep going this way. And again, like I said before, it's pretty much a straight shot to the back of the park. And with a couple little branches, there's sort of a kids area that runs parallel to this. As well as a couple other rides like the Wild Mouse that's over there. And we'll check all that stuff out later. Over here, I just saw this, is where the Fireball is, which is their new ride for 2016. It's basically a Larson Looper. They're calling it a loop coaster, even though it's not really a roller coaster. And they have a Coca-Cola filling station over here, which is nice. And yes, they're making their rounds. This is their year to get one, I guess. And this one is opening May 20th with the season pass preview, May 14th and 15th. So you know, it is what it is. It's a Larson Looper, and I think it's odd how this is opening May 20th, but they're not putting VR on Superman until June 11th. Even though, if you look on their website, it advertises the Superman VR coaster as coming spring 2016, and then they changed it. There's a note underneath it saying it's not going to be open yet. Then they changed it to summer 2016. The sign here said it's opening June 11th. It did say there will be a season pass holder preview date announced soon. So I imagine probably like a week or so before that, we'll see a season pass holder preview day for Superman VR, which, if you have a season pass, you may want to consider coming for that. Because as I said before, I'm expecting operations to just be atrocious once they have the VR. So really, if you want to do it, and really if you want to get a chance to ride Superman without waiting for most of your day, you really should consider trying to get here early season, or and especially during the week, and especially, you know, once they start the VR. I would recommend coming. If you want to check the VR out, I would recommend coming on that pass holder preview day if you have a pass, because I'm sure, you know, the operations, they'll still probably be getting the hang of the whole process of it, but I'm sure there's not going to be nearly as many people trying to do that ride as there will be once it opens to everybody else. Last year I came for a pass holder preview for Wicked Cyclone, and basically was able to just walk right on. So I'd recommend, you know, if you have a season pass or you're thinking about getting a season pass, wait for them to announce that date and make that the day that you come and experience it. Because otherwise it's going to take you quite a while. So on this end of the park, after you pass kind of all these shops and games and everything in the sort of Rockville area, over here you can see the water park here. Their water park is included. There's an entrance over there to get to it. So once you're in the gate, you can go to the water park or not. Over here we have the Mindy Racer, which is a Vekoma SLC, or suspended looping coaster, and I'm going to skip it because I've been subjected to enough Vekoma torture today with the 2 boomerangs. It's pretty rough. You will bang your head a whole lot. It gives me a headache. And lots of Six Flags parks have these. They're all the same, so if you've done one, you've done all of them. Definitely not my favorite. You know, for what it's worth, the ride looks cool, and it actually has like some nice elements on it, like the sort of I don't really know what they call the element, but it's the first element after you do the drop turn, where it's basically like a half loop into like an inline twist into another half loop that kind of looks like a bean or something like that. I don't know what they call the inversion, but that's actually a pretty cool inversion. It'd be cool if you could do it without banging your head. I know like some of these are going to the vest restraints, like the one in New Jersey at Boris Piers, I believe, is going to that. I haven't gotten the chance to do that, but I do want to try it and see if it's any better. But for today, I'm skipping it. There's usually not a super long line, so if you want to try it out, feel free. But, you know, don't expect too much. We've got more food areas. More places you can get beer, which, as I said before, is nice because you can carry it through the park. And back here we have Batman the Dark Knight, which is a B&M floorless coaster with a pretty compact layout for a floorless coaster. So I'm gonna go check this out. Alright, I just got out Batman the Dark Knight, which is a B&M floorless coaster. It's actually one of the smaller ones. At least one of the smaller ones that I've been on. I know there are smaller ones than this. You know, it's kind of maybe on par in terms of the size of it with like a Hydra, but definitely a lot different of a ride. You know, basically you have your drop turn, loop, and then you actually have a dive loop, and then you go up around this way, do a 0G, got your pair of interlocking corkscrews, and that's about it. No mid-course or anything like that. It's a pretty short ride. You know, it's probably like, in some ways, the floorless equivalent of like Batman clone, like the inverted Batman's, just in terms of like how compact the layout is. That being said, it's not nearly as intense as like an inverted Batman. It's not super intense overall. It's not particularly quick, but it's still a good ride. I mean, it's not bad. It's still a fun ride. The loop and the dive loop and the 0G are all fine. But I do have two complaints about the ride. The first complaint is I do bang my head a little bit on the corkscrews, particularly the second corkscrew. Every single time I bang my head on the left side, every single time coming around like the back side of the corkscrew. The first one, like I said, is not quite as bad. It's got a little bit of a rattle. But overall, other than that, it's pretty smooth. The other problem that I have with this ride is really kind of has to do with the time of day. Pretty much every time I've ridden this ride, it faces the way the sun sets. So every time I ride this ride, I constantly have the sun in my eyes, which really kind of takes away from it, and it's distracting me from being able to enjoy the ride. So as you can see, the sun is up there now, and so basically anytime you're facing this direction on the ride, the sun's in your eyes. So that's something to be aware of if you ride it. You may have a better experience if you ride it during a part of the day where the sun's not going to be in your eyes. But it's still a good ride. But in terms of my list of floorless coasters, it's probably the one that excites me the least. Just because it's not really super intense, and it's not the smoothest of them. It's really kind of, you know, just a few inversions one after the other, and that's basically all it is. But that being said, there's also never a line for it, so I usually walk onto it, which I did just now. So it's not too bad. So the Dark Knight is the extreme dead end on the other side of the park. There is the entrance to the water park to the right of it. The water park's not open for operations just yet. It's actually been pretty nice weather. It's about 60 degrees or so and the sun's out, so it's nice and comfortable outside today. Really the perfect weather. Over here we do have like a car ride, an antique car ride, except they're not really antique cars. They look like Jeeps. Looks like it's kind of themed like a safari. Here we have teacups. Gotta have teacups. Some water park stuff. I don't know much about their water park. I don't know how good of a water park it is. But it is included with admission. So if you like water parks, it's good to know. Overall, I'd say this park is kind of in the middle of the chain in terms of what it has to offer. There's two really great coasters here between Superman and Wicked Cyclone, both of which both of which are top 10 rides to some people. They're top 10 rides to me. I think at this point I'd actually put Wicked Cyclone just a tad higher. I think I actually have them right next to each other in my top 10, but I think they'll probably flip spots. So you have two really great coasters. You've got a couple good coasters. Like I'd say the Dark Knight's a good coaster. Pandemonium's a good coaster. The wooden coasters, it's a good coaster. but kind of, you know, like good to average range. You have several of those, but then you just have like several like bad coasters. You got 3 Vekomas in the same park. They're all rough. They all give you a headache and hurt you and throw you around. And that would be Mindy Racer and the 2 Boomerangs. And the fact that there are 2 Boomerangs, it seems like a waste of a coaster to me. And then you've also got a couple other things, like you got this Wild Mouse over here, which I'm not a huge fan of wild mice. Second kids area is Kidsopolis, which you can kind of take as a shortcut. If you're coming from Dark Knight, you can actually take a shortcut over here to get to Superman and the Gotham City Gauntlet, which is the Wild Mouse over here, and the Catwoman's Whip. So we'll show you that. There is also a Primo's Pizzeria in here if you want pizza. But yeah, you know, it's a nice little kids area. You got good kiddie rides. But as I was saying before, so in terms of the rides, like, I'd say it's kind of in the middle of the road in terms of the number of them that it has and the number of good ones that it has. There's definitely enough stuff to keep you busy here. I'd say it's, you know, pretty good park for families as well. But what I really love about this park is just the park itself. I'd say overall the park is just a nice park. It's well kept, it's clean. It's a comfortable size in terms of walking. You don't have to walk too far ever. The employees and guests have always been pretty friendly, so never had a problem there. So it's just, you know, it's just kind of a nice park. Alright, I just got off the Catwoman's Whip, which I really only did because I didn't have the credit. So now at this point I actually do have every credit in this park. It's, you know, it's alright. It's a little family coaster. It's one of those Zero Tivoli models that have just like the absurdly long train for no reason. The train's so long that there's not actually a brake run. The station is basically the brake run. And if you're in the back of the train actually stops like on the last hill, like before you even go up it. Just because the trains are so hysterically long. It's a pretty slow ride. Not a whole lot in terms of horses and everything. But, you know, it's a fun ride. Fun, like, little family ride. You could take, like, your little kids on and everything. Here's the Gotham City Gauntlet, which is a wild mouse. Just a basic wild mouse. I forget which model this is, who makes this one. But, you know, wild mice are all pretty much the same. So you get over here. I went down those stairs over there, which take you back up to the Kidsopolis area. And that connects over here to Superman. So basically, once you come around this corner, you're back in the DC area, which is where I actually started my day here. So at this point, I've shown you all of the park. There's a couple, you know, there's a couple different ways to get to some of the places that I went, but more or less, it's pretty straightforward, really easy to navigate park. It's a good size. I've actually got a couple hours left, so I'm gonna, you know, get some re-rides in, do a couple little marathons before I call it a day here. And after another several cycles, that about does it for me here today. And after a total of 9 rides today on Wicked Cyclone, I have determined that the back is definitely the best seat on the ride. I've had some good front row rides, but the back is consistently really good. Another funny thing that happened was the seat back cushion on the seat in front of me flew off when the train went down the first drop, which is funny because apparently it's only held there by Velcro, and probably glue, but it was clear that that was wearing off because when I got on the train, I had to put my hand down on the back of the seat to, get my balance when I was like getting in my seat. And when I went down the first drop, it flew off. So that was funny. When we got back, I told them, like, hey guys, this piece flew off the train. They're like, oh yeah, no, it's okay. It's happened before. So, not a serious issue, but definitely a funny little story. So this has been kind of keeping with the trend of my past couple weeks. This has been the easiest day I've ever had at this park. This park typically doesn't get, it can get really busy, but it's usually just like one or two rides that get really busy. Like Superman will get really, really busy. Wicked Cyclone can get busy, but it's usually not too bad. Today it was walk-ons everything, which is really good. I did every ride in the park that I wanted to do. Every coaster, with the exception of the two that I skipped, which I had done before. But I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Wild Mouse coasters, so I didn't really need to do that. And I didn't need to give Mindy Racer another chance after doing both of these boomerangs one after the other, which I definitely would not recommend doing. I ended up getting a total of 8 cycles on Bizarro and 9 on Wicked Cyclone. Every other ride I just did 1. Which to me, for me personally, is the issue that I have with this park. Is that there's really only 2 coasters here that I really come here for. Not to say that, like, as I said before, there are some that are just flat out bad. Like all the Vekoma rides that are here are all just flat out bad. But most of the rest of the rides, there's nothing wrong with them. They're fine. They're just not that exciting to me as somebody who goes to a lot of parks. That being said, both Superman and Wicked Cyclone, in my opinion, are top 10 coasters and worth coming to the park for. So I don't really mind sitting on either one of those for as long as I did today. I just wish, there was like one more that would excite me. We have a little kiddie coaster here that I just noticed. One policy that kind of annoys me, and has annoyed a lot of people, is the way that they do operations on Wicked Cyclone. There's not a whole lot of space in the station loading zone, so they pulse, which basically means that after they load the train, they open the chain and they count people until they have just enough people to fill the next train, which, when it's busy, is a good idea, because at least then you don't have, like, a whole bunch of people crowding. But the problem is that a lot of times that prevents you from choosing your seat, unless you have like a nice person, unless you specifically go to them and say, hey, I want to sit in the front or the back. If you get a nice person, say that you want to sit in the front, if you get a nice person, they'll let you stand to the side and just have other people pass you, and then they'll let you go to the front the next cycle. If it's a little bit easier to get to the back, because you can just say, hey, I want to go to the back, and they say okay, and then everybody just fills in the rest of the rows. But it depends. It depends on the people. There were a couple trains I was on where there were only 5 people on the train, and it was row 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 3, because they said go all the way to the front. You can't choose your seat. Go all the way to the front, which on a day like today they don't need to do. The other problem is that they wouldn't let the other group of people in until like way too late. They should start letting the next group in as soon as they close the gates. But usually they would wait all the way until they like dispatch the train or the other train gets back, which in my opinion is too long, because they're having to stack the trains every time, which I wish they wouldn't do. Another general chain-wide thing that I wanted to mention is this year I bought the I think it's the gold level season dining pass, which basically gives me lunch, a snack, and dinner every visit at any Six Flags park in the country. So that paired with my gold pass basically, I drove here, parked for free, got in the gate for free, and ate for free, and I'm about to walk out the gate without having spent any money today, other than the money that I already spent several visits ago for those things. So if you're planning on coming even more than once, like even if just 2 or 3 times, it's definitely something worth looking into if you want to make your day a little bit easier. All right, and that does it for me here today at Six Flags New England. It's a nice, probably medium-sized Six Flags park with lots of different stuff to do and a couple notable coasters. If you like this video, please be sure to click the like button below and subscribe for more theme park tour and reviews. Until next time, I'm Adam with Adam's Coaster Chronicles, and I will see you later.